what is appearing to be a crazy development in a story I saw last week that came out of Fort Bliss. So let me put the timer. Let me put 7 minutes on the clock. Let me know if you guys think 7 minutes is the right amount of time. Is 7 minutes the right amount of time for me to address these issues? Should it be longer? Should it be shorter? I don't know. Let me know. And let me know if you have any questions. So let me put 7 minutes on the clock. And let's go. So out of Fort Bliss, about 2 weeks ago, exactly 2 weeks ago, Fort Bliss captain killed after vehicle intentionally rammed by driver. So a U.S. Army captain from Fort Bliss was identified as the driver killed in a fiery, you guys can't see this, as the driver in a fiery wreck after he allegedly was intentionally rammed by another driver. So Captain Malcolm Xavier Perry was killed after his car was rammed by a Jeep, I believe, driven by Richard Mustafa Senesi, and he was arrested and charged with murder by the El Paso police. So this was early in the morning, 5:50 in the morning. Senesi was driving his Jeep when he intentionally rammed Perry's Audi, and Perry died at the scene. I don't know. I'm trying to imagine like what speed this guy must have been going, what the scenario in which he rammed him was, because I'm picturing like a downtown intersection or something, but I guess, who knows? Okay, so no details about that. Young Army leader. Perry joined the Army 5 years ago in Virginia. He took command of Bravo Company and was selected to be a company commander for his passion, leadership, and expertise. He embodied what we ask of young leaders in today's Army, and it was my pleasure to serve with him and to experience his devotion to service to his fellow man and his attitude of present leadership. His service to this division, the Army, and our nation will not be forgotten. The suspect was also wanted on a DUI. He was he has a criminal record. And so horrible, right? I mean, this guy died, and that's, horrible. And I was like, man, upset because you see this guy just driving out by Fort Bliss and he gets rammed and killed. And you think, was he targeted? What was the circumstances behind this? Was it a drunk driver? It's upsetting. All right. Fast forward over here to 5 days later. Fort Bliss captain arrested in connection to the alleged murder of another captain. So here, this is Captain Clevie Mouchette Nelson Royster, and she was arrested by the El Paso Police Department in connection with the murder of Malcolm Xavier Perry. So Nelson Royster was the passenger and owner of the Jeep, and the driver was arrested. So the driver was not the owner of the Jeep. Perry and Nelson Royster were both logistics officers with the 1st Armored Division, according to division spokeswoman Lieutenant Colonel Allie Payne. Army Times reports that on the night before the alleged murder, Nelson Royster and Senesi were at a nightclub when Perry approached them and sat at their table. So Nelson Royster and Senesi were the passenger and driver in the Jeep who rammed Perry. So a fight broke out between a group of people at the table, and it's unclear what caused the fight. After the fight, Perry told Nelson Royster to meet him at his home, and that's when she and Senesi got in her Jeep and drove to his house. As they arrived, they saw that Perry was being assaulted by a group of men. Senesi joined in on the assault before Perry broke away and got into his vehicle, driving off. Senesi then got back in the vehicle and drove after Perry, eventually catching up with him. The police department press release says that the two vehicles crashed when the Jeep intentionally rammed into Perry's Audi. Senesi fled the scene. She stayed on the scene. They were both arrested. So what it sounds like is this was some kind of conflict at the club, where, bad stuff always happens. Nothing good ever comes out of the club. And then spilled out onto the streets at Perry's house. So it sounds like when they say Perry said, come meet him at his house, it was more like, it just sounds like it was more like, well, then come over to my house and we'll settle this, So he got obviously jumped by a group of people. I don't know. Doesn't it seem like there's more going on here than meets the eye? Like, what is it about the Army in the last couple of years with all this inter-Army fighting? Like all this inter-Army killing, disappearances. And it's not limited to the Army. Obviously, there's a Navy SEAL who killed that Green Beret in Africa. There's, a lot of it happens in the Marine Corps too. I don't know if it happens in the Air Force, but there's all this like in the news. The Army's big time under fire for all of this inter-Army conflict and violence among troops. And I've seen, there's so many deployments that the Army's going on. Army's so stressed. The Army recruits anybody, so they don't always know if they're getting the most stable people. And this is stuff that I've read. That's why I'm saying these things. Stuff that I've read online. So I saw that story and it was so crazy. One, the whole story was crazy, but then two, the first write-up about Malcolm Xavier Perry being like the exemplary soldier and leader and, driven, passionate for taking care of the troops. I was like, does that really align with the incident that we're seeing at the nightclub here? So I was just curious. I mean, it's sad. It's tragic that this happened. 3 lives were ruined. The people who did it are going to go to prison. A guy is dead. And then that spills out into their families whose lives are going to be affected. There's nothing good. There's nothing good about it. It's not funny, but it just is also a little interesting that, you can see how the same news organization will portray what happened there in 2 different ways. So anyway, my question is, what do you guys think about all this inter-Army conflict and violence? What's going on with that? Why is that happening? And when will we get some answers on what the Army's doing about that is what I'm curious about.